we are also containers of spirit, whichever that is. There's something beyond our understanding, beyond mere mechanical, chemical, electrical systems in the body. There's something about a wholeness in the body that we should tap into. It embraces prayer. And I notice in my body that if I don't observe my Sabbath day, I'm considerably weakened. But if I do observe that Sabbath day, I'm much, much stronger. And so there is something here that is beyond the pure chemistry, the biochemistry of the body. There's a spirit that is fed by just observing these simple laws of nature.
Well, I can say good morning to you, but what time is it there?
It's just after 2:30 in the afternoon.
Okay. Well, that's reasonable. Yeah. It's 10:30 in the morning here. So, we're not. Yesterday I talked to someone. It was 2 in the morning for him, but he was a young boy, so I guess he can do that kind of thing. I can't do that kind of thing anymore.
Right.
So right? So, I don't remember how we met. Maybe on Instagram. Was that how we met? Or I don't know how it was, but we came in contact together. Naomi told me that she works with plants. She's not eating plants. She might be eating plants, but this isn't it's not about eating plants. Or it might be, but it's also about the medicinal effects of plants. And I've always been interested in those plants, but it's not just that. It's that she has a family history of being a herbalist, because her father, who is here with her today, inspired her, I think, to carry on in the same exploration and adventure. And so maybe I could get you each to introduce yourselves and just say a little bit about what you do, and then we'll talk.
You go then, Dad.
Well, my name is Brian Lamb. I'm a medical herbalist. I live in the north of Scotland. I've been in medical practice for 42 years. I got interested in medicinal herbs very shortly after Naomi's birth, when she developed a very severe case of whooping cough. And she had been treated by a drug that is now banned. And I decided that she was only 6 months old, and I decided that I had to explore another way of getting her well. And very interesting thing happened to me. I was living in southeast London at the time, and I was exploring herbal medicine. And I decided that a herb that was going to clear her chest was coltsfoot, Tussilago farfara. And being a Christian, I decided that I would go to a park and I would pray to be led to this herb. And a very strange thing happened. A very, very strange thing happened. It was right in the middle of summer. It was hot. It was humid. There were hover wasps, not a breath of air. And I was walking down this avenue, and suddenly a piece of fence fell over on its side. And I couldn't believe it. I crossed over the fence. It's a brand new fence. Crossed over the fence, up about a 15-foot slope onto a golf course. And there on the 15th tee was an amazing stand of coltsfoot. So I had a bag with me. I gathered the herb, took it home, washed it, boiled it, made an infusion, added some honey, put it in Naomi's feeding bottle. My wife did anyway. She was only 6 months old. And within literally an hour, she'd bring up copious amounts of mucus and the cough was subsiding. So that was my interest. That was my introduction to medicinal herbs.
You did another thing though, the feet.
Oh, yes. Another thing I forgot to say to you, that in order to get some form of antibiotic into her bloodstream, we put a thin layer of Vaseline petroleum jelly on her feet, sliced garlic into millimeter thick slices, pasted it on her feet, bandaged her foot, put a sock on, and within half an hour, we could smell garlic off her breath. So that, combined with the colt's foot, cured her within several weeks, of course, of whooping cough.
What did your wife think of that?
Just amazed, completely amazed.
She trusted you. She trusted you. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Her stomach went down. It was very rigid with this drug they'd given her. And she got over the whooping cough, and that was all those 52 years later. Subsequently, my other 3 daughters got whooping cough, and they were treated similarly, and they got through this as well.
So that was the beginning. Was that the beginning of your practice?
No, it wasn't the beginning of my practice. It was several years later that I discovered a professional body, National Institute of Medical Herbalists, and I enrolled in the herbal school. 6 years later, I qualified, set up my practice in Scotland, and I've been practicing ever since. But now I've got 2 new graduates. Naomi, of course, has moved away with her husband, started a family in Kent, and so there's some distance between us, but we communicate regularly about herbal matters. We also supply her with several medicinal herbs from our clinic.
So your first intuitions into herbalism, where did you find information about to learn from?
Well, the information on colt's foot was in a herbal book by Juliet de Berkeley-Levy, I think her name is. She was a Swiss woman, I believe. She also studied veterinary medicine based on plants, and it was in her book that I discovered the potential effect of colt's foot on whooping cough as an expectorant. And then, of course, I added the dimension
Right.
of feet.
Well, I'm curious about your practice and the things that you've found over the years. But first, maybe we could introduce Naomi, and you could tell me a little bit about yourself as well.
So that was my first experience of plants, sort of unwittingly as a baby. And my parents moved up from London to the very north of Scotland when I was about 1, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And my upbringing up there was amongst the wilds of the Scottish Highlands, where it's very vast and wild and bleak at times. It looks out to the North Sea. And I remember my childhood going out picking herbs with Dad. We'd go out and pick eyebright and bogbean, and we'd spend days just filling bags to bring home for Dad to use to make tinctures. And at the time, of course, I didn't really appreciate the amazing introduction I had as a child, because you don't. When you're a child and you're out picking tiny plants and you have to fill a bag, it's actually quite not your most favourite job as a child. And I have wonderful memories of picking plants like meadowsweet, which have this most amazing aroma. It has the most beautiful perfume. And we take it back, and we had a big aga in our kitchen, which is like a big stove. And Dad fashioned a sort of a tray that would sit on top of these hot plates. The herbs would go on top, and obviously the warmth would fill the kitchen, wouldn't it, Dad, with this most beautiful fragrance. And I guess the main thing that Dad taught me that I didn't appreciate until later in life was a sense of awe. Awe for nature, for plants, for this healing modality that's all around us and it's free. If only we just harness it and understand and learn more. And of course, now as I'm older, I look back with great fondness to my childhood and the amazing things he taught us when we were very young and not very appreciative.
Well, I can imagine. I grew up in northern Alberta, 400 miles north of Edmonton. So the sun when it was at the solstice, you could take a picture at 11:30 at night. So pretty far north. I don't know if it's as far north as where you were from, but I was from far north, and I loved to be outside with my mom in the garden, and I loved to be in the woods, catching bees, and I loved to lift up the plywood and see what lived under there. And, children are so inquisitive to the natural world. There's something, don't you think there's something about that everyone is missing? Everyone is missing if they don't really pay attention. And so something about you, I don't know what it was, allowed you to pay attention and follow your intuition.
Well, yeah, I think as I've got older, I've just realized that there's so much missing in life and in people's health, not just the foods that we eat, but they're missing out on this wonderful modality of healing plant medicine, the oldest form of medicine in the world. And me and Dad were saying the other day that we don't even know a fraction of what we know, and what Dad knows especially. We don't know it all. We're still on this learning journey. It's a very exciting journey to be on, because what I love about plants, me and Dad were talking yesterday about plants that are known as adaptogens, like, for instance, ashwagandha, holy basil, rhodiola, ginseng, and they all have healing modalities for different things in the body. So really all plants are adaptogens, ones that we don't think are, like hawthorn. And hawthorn is used traditionally by herbalists for the heart. But we were saying, weren't we, Dad, that, we have no idea what other healing ways it's working in the body.
Exactly, yes. It's a very deep subject, but one, unfortunately, that has been not fully explored due to the pressures of conventional medicine to focus just on pharmaceutical drugs, which of course we need, but research has gone into where the money is. And that's how we have, unfortunately, neglected research into medicinal plants. But you've only got to go on PubMed to see there's a constant search for new starter molecules for drugs, and where do they look to for these starter molecules, but the ethnobotanical origin of plants. So ethnobotanists are always on the search for new molecules. Why, for instance, does pepper work on the immune system? Why does nutmeg work on the immune system? Why does thyme particularly work on the lungs? Why does hawthorn work on the heart? Why does milk thistle work on the liver? Why does celery seed work on the kidneys? And so on and so forth. So there's a whole world yet to explore in medicinal plants.
So I have celiac disease. My dad's an Irishman, and so I have an inability to digest, grains and dairy. And it's very interesting that the Irish have, as far as I know, more intestinal trouble from eating grains. Do you deal with that malady and find help through the plant world?
Oh, yes, we do. There are an increasingly number of people with suffering intestinal disorders, not just Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowel syndrome, and so forth, because really we have left the natural use of food has become weaponized. We have
politicalized, Jim.
Absolutely. We've forgotten that, as Hippocrates said on the Isle of Cos 300 BC, that our food should be our daily medicine. But we've forgotten that, and we're eating inflammatory foods. We've skewed our eating times. We've skewed, of course, we know with obesity, the amount of food people eat. We were only talking the other night. Naomi and her husband were invited out to eat at a friend's home a few weeks ago, eating late, and it made them feel ill. They were ill the next day. We've forgotten that we should eat early in the day. We should eat less. We should eat smaller meals, nutritionally dense meals. And I'm trying to teach my patients that best of all, if you can actually work up to eating intuitively. This is the key of eating, to eat intuitively, not according to calories, not according to this plan or that plan, but to select food according to the way your body is saying to you, you need this at this meal, that at that meal, less, more, or even fast for a meal or miss a meal, etc., etc. So we've forgotten how to use food. We've also forgotten that we don't need to eat continuously or even 3 times a day. I've got someone, a friend of mine, he eats once a day.
There's indications. My husband did a podcast with a fellow named Dr. Palmer, who was talking about fasting and the benefits of fasting. Obviously, there's benefits of fasting because there's religious practices of that all over the world. But what happens when you fast? There's the body uses the old, worn-out tissue, and you have regenerative processes during fasting, which we don't do at all in our society anymore. We nibble all the time, and right?
Well, exactly. I mean, central to my practice in Scotland is teaching people these vital lifestyle aspects. And one of the particular ones, which is very interesting, is there's an interesting digestive process called the migrating motor complex. I think this really connects with what you were just saying. The fact that about 2 hours after we've eaten, there's a peristaltic wave that goes from top to bottom, cleansing our system of food residue, sloughed off cells, preparing for when we are actually hungry. But if we say go out in the morning with a friend, we might have a coffee or a cup of tea. But the mistake we make is if we have a cake or a biscuit, and that immediately turns off the migrating motor complex. So the cleansing is not there when we come to our next meal. It's very, very important. And of course, as you alluded to just now, right since the beginning of time, fasting and spirituality were connected. It's very important to know when to stop eating. I mean, we shouldn't eat if we're upset, if we've had some emotional turmoil, because you just cannot digest your food. All these practices are very important to regain what our ancestors knew about, and to regain health rather than having food almost as a weapon against our health.
Well, we're offered so much now, not just in the grocery store, but online, in our social media and everything. We're just offered continually to consume. Yes.
We are, exactly. And people are eating a huge amount of food, and they're not eating what I term as nutritionally dense food.
What do you define inflammatory foods as?
Well, we do know that the worst possible dietary item is the omega-6 fatty acid found in seed oils. These are very, very inflammatory foods. Also, another interesting aspect is the ultra-processed foods, which form such a big part of Western diet. The interesting thing about ultra-processed foods they've discovered is that the pro-inflammatory action of ultra-processed foods is not necessarily in the ingredients, it's in the manufacturing process, which somehow skews the molecules and turns food into a toxin.
The heating of the foods, possibly, yes?
Yes, the heating, the mixing, the microwaving.
And you've talked about
Mhm.
And the mincing.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting point. For instance, when we mince food, particularly meat, there are pathogens that multiply so rapidly in the minced food with the huge surface area. Whereas if you leave your steak, if you eat steak, and that steak will remain intact, it won't have its body disturbed by a huge surface area that mincing confers.
Interesting.
But there's also another thing. People don't generally eat in peace anymore.
No, they don't.
They don't eat around a table as a family.
Correct.
People are on their phones.
Yes.
They eat in a stressful state often.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find that so many people who've got digestive issues these days, it's often stress related. There's there's something going on that's causing this digestive turmoil, which causes bloating or diarrhea or constipation. Or we've always said how important it is to eat in peace. To eat in peace.
Well, I mean, if you're eating food off a tray with a television screen showing some lurid scene that you'd be embarrassed to see with your daughter, for instance, or some scene of violence and bloodshed and screaming and shouting, what does that do to your digestive system?
TV trays. We started having TV trays when I was a kid, so you could all sit and watch TV when you were eating. We didn't do that very often, thank goodness. I had a terrible hate for the TV because, my dad would work all day. He'd come home tired, and in the evening he'd watch TV, so I hated the TV. Didn't watch it actually after 1979. Watch TV.
Well, I haven't had television for 25 years. And I feel thoroughly cleansed.
I don't read the newspaper either, although I'm married to somebody who he's like a newspaper because he knows everything about what's happening everywhere. So I don't need a newspaper, but for a very long time, I just stopped reading it because I found, it was during the early 90s. That's when I stopped because I just felt like when I read the newspaper, I felt worse. So I just stopped reading it. And it was helpful. Now I've, I've dived right back into it, but it's a different situation because I'm trying to pay attention. I'm trying to pay attention to those things that I may have avoided back then and that I should have spoken up about, so we do what we can as we get through life. That's for sure. So you must have, do you have a medical doctor? Do you use the Western medicine in your lives, or do you manage to live with herbology?
You cannot avoid using the advances in medical science. I mean, look at the astonishing advances in surgery. We could not live without antibiotics because knee replacements, hip replacements, none of this would be possible without antibiotics. And where would diabetics be without insulin? And where would you be in an emergency without steroids? So what we do is we say, well, we try to interface traditional things with orthodox treatment. But of course, we know that orthodoxy has little or nothing to say about nutrition.
No, that's right.
It's very little concept of the value of sleep, for instance.
Yeah.
There's a critical connection between sleep and health. I was saying to someone the other day that if I had a choice between good sleep and junk food diet, or a pristine diet and poor sleep, I would always choose poor sleep, a good sleep and a poor diet, because it comes first. So sort of the lifestyle balance is critically important. And that's something that's been completely lost today. And particularly, as my daughter was alluding to just now, that screens before you go to bed destroy sleep. So does high intensity lighting. So we think we've merged technology into our lives, but what cost it's caused? Huge cost of being disturbed by images late at night and blue light, etc., etc.
So you mentioned antibiotics. Are there antibiotic plants? So if you have, say, a bladder infection and you're supposed to have antibiotics, are there other ways to treat?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
there are. There are many, many potent antibiotics, and strangely, many of them exist in the spices. Many of the spices are potently antibiotic.
Yeah, I just found out recently an amazing piece of information that nutmeg is amazing for bladder infections, and it works.
How do you use it?
Well, you just grate it into a drink, a whole nutmeg, and you just grate it down. And I saw a lady recently with chronic urinary issues, and I gave her some D-mannose, which can often be very good, and hibiscus is another great way of curing bladder.
Vitamin C.
Yeah, and I said, "Why don't you try the nutmeg?" And it was amazing. It was astounding for her. And this has been troubling her for so long, but I only recently found that out.
If I can give you a slight correction, may I?
Go on then.
We have to be careful with nutmeg. If you get a large
If you
nutmeg,
have too much.
and you could get hallucinogenic.
But she's only having.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fine. That's
small
fine. A
piece.
small nutmeg,
Adds to the fun.
you'll be fine.
Nutmegs are quite hard. You must have really crunched them.
It's great with
Because
the
they're
texture.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Great,
see.
yeah.
So what about, little kids at this time of year? My grandkids, they just have one virus after the next, one virus after the next. Poor little guys. Respiratory infections mostly, right? And what do you say about those? Is there something we can do about that besides separating them all?
It's a great deal.
Absolutely. We also are seeing this over here at the moment as well. Lots of young children with lung issues, chest infections, and one of the most amazing herbs for children is something called elderberry. And not only is it antiviral, but it's great for coughs, chest infections. We also love marshmallow syrup, so it's amazing for the chest. And actually, there is a lady I'm in contact with who lives in North America, and she has an elderberry farm. And she literally just grows elderberry. I can put you in touch with her. She has an amazing elderberry syrup. And not only is it very high in vitamin C, it's antiviral. Is it an antibiotic as well?
Yes,
would you
it
say?
is an antibiotic.
Antibiotics, very safe for children. And what I tend to do is to say to parents during the winter months, if they give the children a dose of elderberry every day, just to keep their immune systems robust and strong. And if they happen to come down with a cold or a flu, then they can up the dose, and then you can add other herbs in, like some zinc, thyme. What else would you say, Dad?
Well, of course, children have to like something to take it.
Yeah.
And that's where a syrup comes in. We've heard a lot of bad stuff about sugar. Not all of it by any means is true. And a small amount of sugar, no harm at all. You can make an acceptable syrup with elderberry, and children will take it, and it works very, very well. It's a very good antiviral.
Mm.
It
Very
also, the strange thing about elderberry, which we don't have with, say, echinacea, is elderberry can be taken when you've got a virus.
Yeah.
And echinacea should be taken
Before.
to prevent a virus. Thyme syrup, we make a thyme syrup. It affects the mucociliary escalator, so it will bring mucus up from the lungs. You'll feel more comfortable. It will assuage a cough. It will also act lower down on the intestines to calm the intestines. So medicinal herbs have got a tremendous way to go in helping people, and that's why we're trying to educate people in the way of herbs and to encourage them to try what nature has provided mostly freely for us.
So you've expressed a desire for people to have more faith in their body's healing capabilities. Can you expand on this and share some success stories with me?
I think that the last 4 years people have lost faith in their body's own healing wisdom, the wisdom of the body. They've lost that. They've been made to feel like sitting ducks.
Yes.
They've been made to feel extremely vulnerable and afraid. And we dealt with a lot of that, 2020 onwards. For even now, I would say it's left people quite fearful. And I don't know if it's the same in your country.
No, it has.
But here,
yes.
people...
It is, yeah.
It's very hard to see a doctor here now to get an appointment to see anyone.
Here too.
Well, it feels like, some big, there's big things going on. And I tried all the way through COVID to say to people, look, like me and Dad would say, you've got a God-given immunity, support your immunity, trust your body, and we were dealing with a lot of fear. And I understand why people were fearful, where they were fed it every single day on the news. I mean, they were bombarded. Dad had no fear, I don't think, and I didn't. And I felt we had a job to do. We had a job to do to encourage people and to support them, not just physically, but mainly mentally, I would say. Mainly mentally, to help them to come back to this innate, amazing, body that we have that always wants to keep us well. It always wants to keep us well. And so I think the last 4 years, people lost faith in all sorts of things, in the medical profession, in their own bodily wisdom. And I feel there is some positive shift that people are once again coming back, and it's made people go back to nature. I think it's made people go back to nature. Do you, Dad?
Yes, I do. I think just to amplify what Naomi has said, we know from a scientific medical point of view, there is this astonishing thing called homeostasis, which is a self-regulatory negative feedback system that works in the body. But there's something even more than that. There's an ethereal wisdom of the body. We are also containers of spirit, whichever that is. There's something beyond our understanding, beyond mere mechanical, chemical, electrical systems in the body. There's something about a wholeness in the body that we should tap into. It embraces prayer. It embraces observation in my own way of a Sabbath day. And my Sabbath day is Saturday, when I do no work. I start work again on a Sunday. I do my busiest working day on a Sunday. And I notice in my body that if I don't observe my Sabbath day, I'm considerably weakened. But if I do observe that Sabbath day, I'm much, much stronger. And so there is something here that is beyond the pure chemistry, the biochemistry of the body. There's a spirit that is fed by just observing these simple laws of nature.
How did you figure out Saturday was the day? Did you just, your body told you that?
Well, this is very strange you should say that. I've been very interested in the Bible for at least 60 or 70 years. And I think I was brought up in the Church of England to believe that the Sabbath day was a Sunday, until I realized that in the Creed of Nicaea in 325, it was decided to change the Sabbath day from a Saturday to a Sunday. All I can say that is, in my own body, Saturday seems to be, to me, the day to reset. But I also think that whatever day you choose, as long as you can choose one day in the seventh to have your day of rest, to do nothing, or to meditate, or to pray, to walk, to contemplate, to do good for other people, you're so much better for it.
Do you fast that day as well?
No,
No?
I don't fast.
Do you have any fasting regime in your...
I eat quite frugally, and I've sort of got my calorie input down to a level where I can function well. I must admit, though, on Saturday and Sunday, I eat differently than I do during the working week of Monday through Friday. So I have fasted, but in my own case, I've got quite a high metabolic rate. And if I don't eat, I feel very cold.
Yes. I'm familiar with that. What about you, Naomi? What kind of a week do you have? Do you have a day of rest?
Not as much as I should, no. Unfortunately.
Right.
I'm not as disciplined
Yeah.
as Dad. I need to take that discipline. I find it hard to switch off sometimes as well. And that actually comes back to, I hate to say it, the mobile phone becoming, my work is on my phone a lot. And I realize this is part of the thing I want to do this year, is to be way more disciplined with that. I'm trying not to reach for it first thing. I'm trying to get outside and to get some light behind my eyes and look up before I go to the screen. I mean, I know that's so important for me and my health. I really do.
I have a couple. My son suggested I put an app on my phone called Opal, where you can inhibit everything on your phone except for, say, your email or whatever, and texting, whatever it is that you want to have during your workday.
Well, that's good.
So that's one thing I've done. And there's another setting on my phone that shows distance from your phone. And so if your phone gets too close, it stops you and asks you if you want to continue, but you have to put it far away.
It's good.
What is that app?
So that's a setting on the iPhone. I'll send it to you. My son told me about that too, so I'll have to,
That's really good.
find out what that is. But yes, it's quite helpful. And I thought, I don't do that, but actually, since I've put it on there, I do that.
Yeah,
I sometimes get involved in things, and then I bring it very close. Especially if I'm sitting in a car or something, I might bring it close, because the car is kind of shaky, and so you have to get it in a place where you can see it, and it's probably just not a good practice after all. You might want to look out the window, which I try to do mostly. We were just in Fort Myers in Florida. They had a hurricane 6 months ago, and it was quite a hurricane. It flattened a lot of the buildings. And we were leaving there, and we were driving out, and I was looking into the forest and not at my phone. And I thought, those trees, they look pretty disheveled, those trees. And then I saw a small yacht in the middle of the forest that the ocean would have pushed up onto the shore.
God.
It was very close to, it was close to a a place where they were selling boats. So this might have been one of their boats, but it was in the forest. And I thought, my goodness, the strength of nature, right? The strength, which is kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about the strength of nature, and that we've forgotten it and left it behind. And the pharmaceutical industry has become so controlling because it has so much money. It's been able to sway what we do and what we don't do. I imagine that you've had run-ins with the pharmaceuticals companies, but I'm not certain of that. I'm just asking if
No,
that
we
has
haven't
ever happened.
run-ins with them at all.
Good.
I try to keep neutral.
Yeah.
Try to, in my treatment of people, of course, I do have difficulties with the fact that many are on so-called forever drugs. That's the biggest
Right.
problems I've got. I often advise people to go back to their doctors so that they can check whether they need something they might have been on for many years. Then, in some cases, we have to suggest to people that they might need to give a rest from something they've been on for a long time. But we try to keep, we try to restrict our advice to cleansing, detoxifying, and stabilizing the digestive system. And we try to advise lifestyle, sleep, nature, walking, getting out, stopping, staring, absorbing, contemplating, patience, being kind and good to people, that there's more happiness in giving and receiving. And the more you give to people, the happier you become. And so what we do is we, first of all, it's interesting, there was a survey that went out in America several years ago. And the survey asked a simple question: what is the first thing you want from your doctor? And the answer came back: to be listened to. So we're very good listeners. We spend at least an hour with an initial patient, and that they've had their story listened to is healing in itself. To be listened to is a healing modality.
Well, when you listen to someone, they can figure out what they're thinking. If they're finally speaking to someone that's listening, they can get their story straight. That's something. That's for sure. All those things that you've said, I've dabbled in myself, so it all makes sense to me. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, also just looking at someone, these days over here, you're offered a phone consultation with your doctor. And I remember reading a great book by Victoria Sweet. She was a doctor in the States. I think she wrote God's Hotel and Slow Medicine. And I'll never forget what she said, and this was a few years back now when things weren't as they are now, but the importance of looking at someone in the face, holding someone's hand, knowing the familial history, not just about illnesses, but their emotional well-being, and and just the fact that I find because of social media, I have a lot of people contact me on Instagram and through Facebook with all manner of health requests, and I'll often say to them, come in. Sometimes you need to look at someone in the eyes, look at their face, look at how do they look depressed? Do they look pale? What's their emotional health like? And you cannot get that from a phone call.
You can't, no.
So it's not just about listening to someone's story. It's actually looking at someone in the face. And I don't know, even just the physicality of standing next to somebody. that in itself, I always want people to leave me feeling better than when they came, feeling at least heard, like you said, Dad. People are often not able to get things off their chest and not able to speak up and to speak out because there's no time, or there's shame, or there's embarrassed, there's some kind of, and it's amazing how people can just look different when they leave.
Yes, I mean, people over here, maybe the same in your country, they're given about 5 minutes when they visit their doctor. I mean, if I had that time, I can barely get their name and address and date of birth down. But people we see, they are desperate to tell you their story. We listen. We don't write while we're listening. We just look them in the face, we nod or whatever. We look them in the eyes. They get their story out. And that is so healing, just to listen, be listened to.
Yeah, I've been talking about listening. I've been talking to the people that we meet about the virtue of listening, really. It's a virtue to listen to someone. It's a gift, to listen to someone, and not just to them, but to yourself. These are all good things. I wanted to ask you, in the terms of diet and health, what your thoughts are, because I have a carnivore diet, right? I don't eat anything but meat and drink water. I have laser therapy. I use a cold laser. I was a massage therapist, and I use a cold laser that has red and infrared light to help with people's inflammation and to help to heal. The mitochondria picks up the light, and so it helps the cells respond more quickly and brings healing. And I was a yoga teacher for a very long time, so I started doing yoga when I was 13 years old. My aunt gave me a yoga book, and I just went home and did yoga every day, once a day. And I did that really up until just a couple of years ago, maybe even last year. I do Pilates now more because I need more strength. But I still, I guess, do the same thing in that way. And I imagine that these types of things are harmonious with what you practice.
I also used to do a lot of yoga, and now I do weights because I'm nearly 3. And it's funny, you have phases in your life where things suit you, and then you think, it's funny, I need to move on and do something new. But and also regarding diet, I mean, interestingly, we were brought up vegetarian, which I'm not now.
No.
And I think through your own experiences in life, like Dad said, that it's actually a skill to be intuitive to what your body needs. And sadly, the most people I meet now have a fear of food because they don't know what to eat. They read about calorie counting, and this is bad for them, and that's bad for them. And I'm more inclined these days to advise people to go back to what their grandparents ate. Very simple foods. They may be very basic and maybe not even interesting, but I find that when they go back to these old foods, lots of things heal. And also they're not fighting with all the kind of things out there that they're reading about. But there is, we have to become intuitive with eating. People have lost that. In fact, I met someone not long ago with a very bad digestive condition, and his wife was doing all the things that she felt were right to help him with his issue. And he said to me, you know what? He said, I always feel good when I just have meat and vegetables. I think it was just potatoes. And I said, well, there's your cue. You don't need to be told by anyone else. There's your cue. You have a happier digestion when you eat this very simple food, and you don't need anyone else to tell you to do something else. So this is what I mean about people have lost their intuition, and they've lost their kind of connection. They need to get back to just having some faith in the bodily signals.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it took me a long time. I was always had a stomach ache from the time I was a little girl, and we had a North American diet. You know, it was pretty oatmeal in the morning and
Mm.
orange juice and popcorn in the evening, watching TV. So we had a pretty basic diet. And it took me till I was 40 to figure out that my son made me whole wheat pancakes in the morning, and it used to make me very sleepy, very sleepy. And at lunchtime, my daughter made me whole wheat pasta, and I passed out for like 2 hours and I woke up and I thought, it's got to be wheat. And so I just took everything that had wheat written on it and everything in the fridge and I just threw everything away. Just threw everything away. And the next day I felt much better. The next day, after all of this, trying to be a vegetarian, trying to get rid of sugar one year, all these things, they didn't help, all these piecemeal things until I paid attention. One day I was just paying attention, and I think I got enough of what I needed to alert me, and that was enough. And so I haven't eaten any of that since. But by then my poor digestive system was so hurt. It was so hurt by all the years of just a plain North American diet with all the processed foods. We didn't have any at home. My mom had a garden. She didn't bring in any pop, or we made everything from scratch. You know, there wasn't anything that we bought. And that's another thing that I think it's so interesting. You know, we've been manufacturing carbohydrates for years now, right? Putting everything in packages. And now they're talking about manufacturing meat. And people are saying, oh, no, we can't do that. And I thought, well, we've been doing that. Everyone's been saying yes for decades. Yes. I don't think that's going to go anywhere, though, because you don't think so either? Good, because I don't think so either. I can't see it. And you know, and our animals. I was in Belfast recently, and I heard that the Irish were planning to um, kill all the cattle. Yeah, that was very distressing to hear that. Do you know if that's going forward, or if it's happened or anything? I don't know
I'm
the
not
outcome of
sure. I
that.
think it's received a lot of criticism and opposition for obvious reasons. How can you possibly kill all the cattle? And I
Oh,
don't know whether
unbelievable.
is it due to their methane climate change.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I really
Yeah,
don't.
we're sacrificing cows and children to
Mm.
climate change. Yeah,
Crazy, totally crazy.
isn't it?
Mm,
Yeah. Well, my husband was saying that's Baal. That's adherence to a different god.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And that's not going to bring you intuitive knowledge.
Not at all. It's
No.
going to further dehumanize us.
Yeah, right.
And
And we need to talk about that too, because there are so many forces right now
Mm.
towards dehumanization,
Mm.
and to leave our ancestry behind. That
Fine.
you won't see healthy kids and healthy people in your office if that's happening.
we can't eat insects either.
No, no, that's right.
No, I don't want to. No.
No, no. I used to find slugs in the garden. I wasn't looking for them to eat them, that's for sure. I was looking for them to get them off my mother's cabbage. That's all.
Mm,
That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a time to stand very strong and very firm, and to be very grounded.
yeah, yeah.
More than
Yes, I think.
more than
Yes.
ever, and to just be. I don't know. We've already been through some tough times, and it may get tougher.
Mm.
And
But to go back to traditional values,
yes,
traditional values.
which is where you feel safe, and where you feel
You do.
secure, and where you feel at peace, and where you feel. It's funny. I was saying to Dad, you've probably forgotten this. But round where we live, there are lots of stately homes. So, for instance, where King Henry VIII lived in Anne Boleyn,
Mm. Oh,
and
wow.
it's where you pay to go to visit these places that are hundreds of years old, and they've got old paintings, and there's a musty smell of history, when you go in. And I said to Dad, Dad, they're always, I said this to you a few years ago, if you remember this. I said, why are these places always busy?
Mm.
And he said, because people love tradition.
Yes.
People gravitate towards something that feels very safe and earthly and kind of, I don't know, it's like it's grounding. And we now more than ever, we need to just be firm. And
we need to reconnect with our tradition.
we do.
That's worked for hundreds and thousands of years.
We do.
Yes.
We do.
Yes, parenting, marriage, and family life.
Exactly.
All of that, which they're trying to destroy, and and it's not making anyone any happier.
No.
You know,
just the opposite.
The proof is in the pudding. Mental health is terrible. Families are breaking up. Children are unhappy. It's not working.
No,
it's really not working.
No.
And
what do you think about the plastics in water? That people are drinking out of plastic bottles, and they're finding microplastics in people's systems.
You make a good point. I mean, even if we go to the traditional tea bag, they're made of plastic. We're all consuming microplastics, and I don't really know what to do about it. I mean, we have to keep our organs of elimination.
Yeah,
we've got to keep a throughput. We've got to have a daily bowel movement. We've got to make sure we exercise and we sweat a bit. We've got to make sure that our digestive system is working pretty fast, that we're not accumulating, because these plastics will irritate us, no question about it. And we certainly can't digest them. I think plastic waste is the big earth-wide problem. It's nothing to do with all sorts of other things they're trying to tell us. Plastic waste is a major earthly problem right now.
Well, I think that if we were willing to bury the plastic and let the microorganisms eat it, we could get rid of it. But we're afraid of our earth now. We're afraid of the regeneration and recuperation of the earth, and how strong it is, and how able it is to survive and to prosper. And the animals on it too. The animals on it, how necessary those animals are on the earth. All of this tradition that you're talking about is so important to keep bringing things, recycling and bringing things back again. We're very interested in recycling, of sending our recycling out to the garbage, but they don't know what to do with it once they get it there, because they've got mixed up about what recycling really means, right? So people, like you said, they have an intuition, right? They think, recycling, that sounds like a good idea, but what does it mean exactly? Well, I think it means regenerative farming, and it means there's other kinds of recycling that we've forgotten.
Yeah, I think regarding the point you made about plastics, they are working on enzyme systems to digest plastics. How far ahead that is, I don't know, but I think it's a possibility, because it is plastics that are the main polluters.
Yeah, everything else is easily dealt with.
We are ingesting microplastics, and we haven't actually had a lot spoken about that, have we?
No.
They're talking about, we breathe in these pollutants from road traffic, but what about what we're eating? What about the tea bag that leaves behind some microplastics in our tea, etc., etc.?
Yeah, well, just recently, I've revisited it a couple of times, and recently I saw a post the other day about microplastics and the harm of my microplastics. And because I'm traveling a lot, I'll often drink a bottled water, and so I'd like to stop having anything encased in plastic that I'm eating or drinking. I don't think it's a good idea. Especially if if it's kept in plastic for some time, that's a problem too, right? Maybe it's the time
Yeah.
that plastic is in
I,
contact with the food.
Exactly. You've made a good point there. I mean, I think the big problem here is the hormone disruptors in plastic. We know that there is an excess of estrogen in men and women, and many of these estrogen disruptors are coming from food wraps.
Yeah.
The oily foods like cheese, etc., will absorb the hormone disruptors. As you said, plastic bottles, plastic bottles containing oil, which and also the excess use of plastic right next to food is very, very problematic, because we know that, as I said, both in men and women, estrogen dominance is causing lots of illnesses. I mean, we've got a huge surge of prostate problems with men, which I believe is due to estrogen dominance. And we know that in women there's a lot of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and I think this is due to excess estrogen in our food chain.
And not being able to detoxify it well.
Exactly. That's a very good point.
We're not able to detoxify it well because of bowel issues and
weak liver
and
stress, and the liver's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So we do need foods that stimulate the liver.
Yeah.
Cleanse
bitter
the liver.
foods.
Pardon?
Bitter foods.
Bitter foods, exactly.
They were traditional as well. We used to have, traditionally people would have bitter foods before they had their meal.
Yes, they would.
To stimulate, the gallbladder and bile flow. And interestingly, I often give people bitters. I just have a sense that they need them, and they can be just absolutely amazing. We're not used to having anything bitter.
No, we're not.
We're so used to sweet and sickly and flavoured that bitter foods don't really touch our lips these days. And so over here now we have the dandelions are coming through. That beautiful yellow, it's seen as a weed. But it's not a weed. It's the most amazing healing bitter food.
It is, exactly.
Amazing for the liver. There's some amazing research done on the dandelion for leukemia. It's cleansing, it's detoxifying. It can help bring the appetite back.
Stimulates the kidneys.
It's one of our favourites, isn't it? Dandelions.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first ones I learned about was dandelion.
Yeah, and it's seen as a weed and a pest. And interestingly, when we first went into lockdown, it was in March, and the dandelions were just coming through, and they were like this kind of bright beacon of hope. And in fact, they're incredibly antiviral. Dad wrote an amazing paper on the antiviral benefits of dandelions. So if someone comes into my shop with a flu, or they're feeling like they have a virus, I'll often give them a dandelion drink. Juice. But of course now you can pick it, and we made a dandelion honey just to get people. I wanted to get people. It was a great opportunity actually for encouraging people to get back into nature, because at that time everything felt so shaky. The only thing that felt solid was the earth and nature and plants coming and going. And then there was this amazing the cycle of life, the dandelions are back again this year. And I said to people, one thing you can be sure of is nature. And it was a real comfort.
It was the most encouraging thing, wasn't it?
It was
To
comforting.
see the seasons as normal in this time of despair.
Yeah, it was. Do you know? I actually really think that it forced people to get back to nature, something that they had not really thought about much or appreciated or had, perhaps the gratitude that it really came. It was an amazing force for peace and for comfort, I think.
It was, yes.
And I hope that's still carrying on now. But anyway, dandelion is one of the most amazing bitter herbs. And, even olives are bitter.
Olives are bitter. You're quite right, because we don't have these receptors in our mouth and tongue. We've got the 5 receptors. And, of course, they connect with all the organs of the body. The receptors, we taste things on our tongue, and it stimulates things, organs, secretions at a distance. And that's why, as you say, we've got to move beyond the mouthfeel of things that are false in our appetites. Why would everything need to be sweet and sticky and oily? We do need the sour, the sweet, the bitter, the hot, even the umami. Well, umami, meat eating, etc., etc. We were given these senses because they have a distant effect in the body.
I like people, and I think we have knowledge to help each other through these difficult times. And so I very much appreciate your wisdom. I could talk to you for another 4 hours, I think, and learn all kinds of things. Are you going to put will there be any links for people so they can read about what you do or look at what you do?
Well, you have a very special following, don't you, that they could link up with?
Well, yeah, maybe just my Instagram and Dad has written some amazing articles over a long period of time, and a lot of them are on my website. But I mean, it's a continual journey of
exploration, study,
and
research, application. Yes,
I mean, it's a very exciting. You always say it's an exciting time to be alive. I love that. He says that when things get tough and I'm getting a bit depressed. He says, "Oh no," he said. This is an exciting time to be alive. He said that for the last, long time, and I do agree with him that and we're here for this time for a reason.
We are here.
I also really believe that, and I feel like
I do.
We have a work to do, and we have to keep fighting the good fight and be encouraging and support people through what may come and what's already come. And Dad, he won't mind me saying, but he's going to be 87 this year, and he still works full time doing something that he loves. So he still reads all the time. We would all share new medical stuff, don't we? I mean, you're never going to get bored doing what we do. And like you, Tammy, I love people. I find people I remember that book I read years ago by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think I read that when I was, 17. I thought, this sounds a bit of a strange book. And I've never forgotten that, to love people and to be interested in people and to be authentically interested in people. It's almost a gift. I feel it's almost a gift. And Dad,
yes,
you are and I am. I love being with people. I'm very happy to sit and just listen. I'm very happy just to listen to someone because I think people have an amazing story to tell.
Yes, I love helping people. If one can help people without getting into overcare.
Yeah.
And that's a skill. Very important.
I have to pray about that always. To not do that. I have to pray about that always.
What, overcare?
No overcare.
No, overcare,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's hard.
Exactly.
I find that hard. Dad is often having to
It's hard.
pull me out of that, because when you care about people, it's very easy to slip from. You were talking
Care
about this,
into
yes.
overcare.
You said compassion and sympathy are
Oh, yes,
very.
Yes.
Sympathy is
Mm.
very poor. Compassion is very good. They're worlds apart. Sympathy and compassion and empathy. And these don't drain you. They don't drain you. They energize you.
But if you get into overcare, you become very drained,
Very drained.
very quickly.
Very quickly, you do.
And it's a difficult one because it's a slippery slope.
It is.
I think, especially when you're dealing with sad things, and you feel for people. You have this empathetic, and it's easy. You've always said that you don't ever get drained, though. You listen to some sad things and you don't feel.
No,
bad.
I don't get caught up.
No.
I imagine I manage to be dispassionate, to love.
Well, don't take it personally, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't get entrained in their misery. In that way, I keep back, and I can help them by not getting entrained in their misery, by being compassionate and empathetic rather than sympathizing and getting caught up.
Yeah, we have quite a problem with compassion in our society, where we think that compassion needs to be brought into the workplace, and that men have to be compassionate as the top virtue in what they're doing, rather than what they think is what is most necessary to negotiate business. But we're not having our babies as much anymore, and I'm wondering if the compassion that people are that femininity is bringing into the workplaces is misrepresented now, and it should have been a family and a marriage, a baby endeavor. That's where that is going. But if you don't do that, then it's going to try to find its place. And if it finds it in society, in working society, it causes trouble. So things that can be good in one instance, right? Good in the family, good in a therapeutic situation, can be catastrophic in a different scenario. And I think that's what we're seeing at the very high in the UN, in very high places, that this idea of it becomes a political force. Yeah, it can't become a political force.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
Yeah, but I see you two together here. I think that's so beautiful. That's so nice. My father just passed away.
Oh, sorry.
He was 92, just about 93, and he was himself right till the end. And we had very good life. He had a good life, and it was funny, when I left, my husband had to leave me just days after my dad died. He had to go up and see his parents because he wants to keep them in their house, and they had to do a few things to just make it easy for them to get around because they're starting to be a little bit more frail. And I went back to see my daughter because she'd just had a baby. But the baby came a month early, so she was in her bedroom and I was all alone. And I talked to my priest because I'm doing weekly catechism courses. I talked to my priest. I said, I've been resentful this week. My dad died and I'm all alone. And he said, did you take that to prayer? I said, yeah, I took it to prayer. But then because I talked to him about it, it was different than me just being by myself and praying, I talked to him about my resentment, and I realized that I'd misguided. I had looked for relief for my grief from my husband and from my daughter, where the only place I could look was to God. And when I did that, I felt much better. much better.
That's lovely.
It was lovely. It was lovely. And I realized, I said, Dad, you know, you died on the day my grandson was born to teach me yet again something that I really needed to learn. And that was to look to God for my grief. So then I felt like celebrating his life, you know, then I just felt like celebrating. And I sent his obituary everywhere I could that night. I felt so much joy and so much full of love. And they started sending me back stories about my father. And then my tears were in their right place, you know, then my tears were in the right place. It was a very good experience for me.
And he lived to a good
You never
age.
know what's going to happen.
No,
He did. He lived to a good age.
really good age.
Was that in Ireland?
Yeah.
He died in Ireland.
No, he's on Vancouver Island,
Oh, I see.
another island. He's on Vancouver. But my sister's a palliative care nurse, and she was there. She moved to the island when he started getting a little older. She needed to be closer and keep an eye on him, and she did. She just kept a great eye on him. So it was good, you know. Our family, I couldn't believe it. As they all got older, they all moved back to the same town. My sisters and my brother and my dad, they all congregated, and I thought, oh, that's healthy. That's good. So I'm very happy to see you two together. That's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We share a lot of.
Yeah, there's strength, strength in numbers,
Yeah.
right?
We do.
Yeah, and I said to Dad yesterday that I love how you sign off your emails, keep up and be kept up. And I think it's such a lovely way to, I don't know, it's a beautiful, I love it anyway. I found that beautiful in itself. And I said to Dad, that's what we all need to do. Keep up and be kept up.
Yes.
Keep each other up.
Yeah, right. Keep each other up. Yeah, that's for sure.
Keep each other up. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you are doing. So it's good. It's absolutely good. Well, I'd like to thank you both for coming on my podcast. I really enjoyed speaking with you both.
Thank you.
That was nice.
And you, Tammy.
And I look forward to getting your email. And you can send your links to Ian. He'll post everything for us. And we'll notify you when the podcast goes up.
Lovely, Tammy. And I will.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
I'll send you some information on sea buckthorn that you can get some locally. It could really help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do use the castor
All
oil
right.
and the name Palm of Christi.
Palm of Christi, what's that?
Palm of Christ. That's what.
Palm of Christi.
That's what.
Palm of Christ.
That's what castor oil was known as, because it was so healing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Palm of Christi.
Oh.
Palm of Christ. The healing oil.
Okay. Oh.
That's nice, isn't
it? I see. It is. It's very nice. It's very nice. God be with you.
And you, Tammy. Take
Thank
care.
you, and you.